Josh Bower, our teamer mid-range player, also someone who could sneak in.
Yep. A lot of cool decks at the top of the standings. There's been some oddballs here. Mono Green Beatdown, Mono Blue Devotion, Teamer Aggro, all potentially in the top 8.
What I like about this is, as much as there are lots of different decks in the meta, we saw Obs on Aggro versus Esper Dragons last round. We're going to get to see the other part of the big three here, Atarka Red versus Obs on Aggro, as we get to the match. Kian Dai on the play. He will start with Llanowar Waste. That's a decent sign for Cedric when he's leading off on a Pain land. Cedric will have the turn 1 Monastery Swiftspear, knocking Kian down to 19 as we go back over to our Obs on Aggro player. His turn 2 is cracking Windswept Teeth and making some sort of 2-drop. And this matchup is an interesting one. Tell me your thoughts on it.
It comes down to, in my opinion, Kian's mana. If he's able to cast his spells on time and take minimal damage, he's just doing a lot more pound for pound than what Cedric's doing. And he's backing it up with some key removal spells. But if he stumbles, too many lands that come into play tapped, too much damage off of his lands, even if his cards are more powerful, Cedric can steal the games.
Well, he did half of what you mentioned there. He's playing his cards on time. That's a turn 2 Fleece main line. He is taking some damage off it, though, having to tap Llanowar Wastes. We'll see what Cedric's response is. Ideally, he would Lightning Strike and keep it beating down, but this 3-3 can be difficult for a red deck to get through, especially when it's on the play.
Now, a game plan Cedric can have if he doesn't kill this is by going wide with things like Hordeling Outburst, with cards like Dragon Fodder, especially backed up by Atarka's Command. He can work around these big threats, but ideally he would just be removing them from the table.
Mana Confluence is a play from Cedric. If he had an Atarka's Command, he could make an attack here. He'd have to spend his whole turn doing it, but it would at least let him get the lion off the board. We'll see where he goes. Monastery Swiftspear is so powerful in this deck.
And all the points just add up when you're dealing with something like Atarka's Command. This is not a good sign for Kian if Cedric was contemplating this play before doing the obvious Lightning Strike. It meant that he had probably things like Dragon Fodder, potentially Atarka's Command, and other workarounds.
So Lightning Strike takes care of the Fleece main lion. Kian now at 15 off the hit. He has dealt himself 2 damage with his own mana and taken 3 off the Swiftspear.
And Kian's turn is looking like it may be something like Thought Sees You, play a tap land, say go, face up Den Protector. Those are the kind of turns that Kian can't handle. He's got to be very smooth in the first couple turns of the game.
And Thoughtseize, interestingly enough, even though you're playing against a red deck, it is worth casting here. Now it's an extra point of damage. And talk about the fact, this was a 3-point damage life swing from Thoughtseize, not 2. So you see Kian going to 12 to Thoughtseize, and he should be glad he did, but Cedric's hand is real strong.
Yeah, there's a lot of redundancy here. I almost feel like Kian's got to take Dragon Fodder here and just hope that Cedric does not draw land number 3 for the Hordeling Outburst. But this is a very powerful, very redundant hand here from Cedric. It's going to be a tough game for Kian to win.
Yeah, with another land, Cedric has plays like Monastery Swiftspear plus Atarka's Command, some really powerful things. You see second Swiftspear, Lightning Berserker, Atarka's Command, Dragon Fodder, Hordeling Outburst. He's going to take the command out of the hand.
That's fine, too. I mean, it's the same sort of long-term implications of that card. Just too much for Kian to overcome here.
Yeah, then play a Temple.
I mean, with the Atarka's Command out of the hand, it's possible that something like Siege Rhino may be able to stabilize this game for Kian. Still going to be tough.
And back over to Cedric. Does not look like he hit the 3rd land, so has some decisions. Swiftspear, Lightning Berserker, Dragon Fodder, Hordeling Outburst. Those are the ones we know about. Going wide, like we've talked about doing, putting lots of these little creatures on the board, is powerful. Definitely game 1 against Obs on Aggro. Is riskier post-board.
And you can see Kian's leftovers there. He has cards like Den Protector, Hero's Downfall. These are all powerful Magic cards, but if Cedric's just cranking out a ton of 1/1 tokens, they aren't that well equipped to stabilize this game.
All right, well, Cedric is going to go make those 2 tokens off Dragon Fodder. That prowesses the Swiftspear into a 2-3. He'll go ahead and attack. The attack puts Kian down to 10 and then pass back the turn. Limited by his mana, so go back over to Kian. Den Protector, Fleece Main Lion, Obs on Charm among his options.
With the points he's taking and just the inability to get to 2 spells a turn or lock Cedric out, it's just going to be hard for these little chip shots to not eventually overwhelm Kian. He needs to find something like Siege Rhino. He just has to gain life and get a really stable blocker out there.
Yeah, remember Obs on Aggro, not a Corsair Crewfix deck, so it puts a lot of pressure on Siege Rhino to hold down the fort. The play was Fleece Main Lion, no 4th land. We go back over to Cedric. Looks like Cedric also with no land drop. As far as Kian knows, there's no kill spell in Cedric's hand. Cedric will be throwing creatures into the Fleece Main Lion. That said, he may be just fine doing that. And it's going to be Monastery Swiftspear and another Swiftspear that he's drawn. And he either swings everything or nothing, and the answer is everything. Here comes 5 creatures. Lion eats a Swift Spear, but he takes 4. Kian is down to 6. There's the Rhino. No land yet.
Step 1, I don't know if Kian's going to be able to get to step 2, though.
It's going to be hard.
And even still, it may not be enough. I mean, there's a big discrepancy in the light totals right now, and Cedric is showing the ability to go wide against individual blockers.
Looks like he's going to go for a face-down Den Protector. That does mean he does not take damage off his own Landwar wastes. That's a plus. He'll pass back, hoping for an untapped land next turn. And Cedric hits Mountain.
It's a big card for that Horling Outburst we know about.
Yeah, Outburst prowessing both the Swift Spears here is pretty strong. Though Cedric, to keep pushing damage, is suiciding a lot of his creatures into the board.
Not a big deal, though. I mean, Kian's at 6. He's not really threatening the ability on the way back to do very much. You look right now, his graveyard has, you know, a blocker and a Thoughtseize he definitely can't get back. So the Den Protector doesn't really matter very much.
Remaining cards for Cedric, he has a Lightning Berserker. He has a Hordeling Outburst. He's going to go with the Outburst. He's going to prowess the guys, make 3 goblins. Once again, it's either swing everything or swing nothing.
I think this is another everything attack.
Sure is. Here come 2 3 Swift Spears and 2 goblins. This will push 3 damage through, and Cedric will lose 2 creatures for it.
Yeah, if Kian wants to save damage, he can double block the 2. You can block a Swift Spear with each of his creatures, but that's a chump block with the token. If he wants to make inroads on the board, you see the block there, which is Fleece Mane in front of Swift Spear and Morph in front of token. That knocks him down to 3.
He's going to need an untapped land, and he hits. It's going to be Mana Confluence, but he is still alive.
This will bring him up to 5.
Give him a 3rd large blocker. It means he's not dead on the board. Well, with the not dead on the board as of yet.
Yeah, I mean this is untapped land number 4. It's just this is where it's got to start.
Here's Siege Rhino. Kian down to 2 to cast it, but goes up to 5. Cedric down to 13. And
Cedric with a bunch of huge draws. I don't know how much Cedric respects the possibility of BioBlight. I feel like his best line of play is probably Hordeling Outburst and say go, try to set up a kill for next turn.
Yeah, he's been on that play where it's either swinging everything or swinging nothing. He was swinging everything to force Kian to hit some draws. Kian did hit them, so now he may want to just set up for 1 big turn.
Remember, he still has Lightning Berserker in his hand as well, so he has the ability to have at least 1 haste threat next turn in the event that he tries to go for the kill.
Can he get 5 more creatures than Kian has blockers? Hordeling Outburst would do it. Looks like Hordeling Outburst and Dragon Fodder both in the hand.
And unless he's doing something with Lightning Berserker this turn, it does not make a lot of sense to cast Dragon Fodder plus Berserker. And I don't think there's much to be gained by dashing. So I think in Cedric's position, I would be inclined to just cast Hordeling Outburst and say go.
Cedric mathing it out, but I think you're right. He's going to come to the same situation. He can have 3 creatures one of 2 ways, either Fodder plus Berserker or Outburst. Leaving the haste threat in his hand for next turn does seem stronger.
I mean, Cedric's looking at tendering an Alpha Strike here. It knocks Kian down to 3. So unless Lightning Strike is involved in all of this, I don't think there's a lot to be gained here. He risks taking a bunch of damage on the way back, and I don't think he's really cutting off any outs. If you're knocking Kian down to 1 and maybe cutting off Mana Confluence, that would be a different story, but I don't think Cedric has access to that kind of attack.
Thinking right now, if he swings the team, he only pushes 2 damage. Does open him out in the form of some burn spells.
The major incentive to attack with everything is if you are worried specifically about BioBlight and feel like you just need to burn Kian out.
I think he's going for the dash Lightning Berserker plus swing the team line. That's certainly the most aggressive option available to him. So the Berserker, Swift Spear, and a Goblin token should all get eaten here.
Yeah, I would imagine this is Siege Rhino in front of Berserker, Fleecemane Lion in front of Swiss Spear, Morph in front of Token.
It does mean that Cedric will deal 3, put Kian down to 2, then play Dragon Fodder and have 5 creatures ready to untap against Kian's 3 blockers. It forces Kian to have another creature.
Yeah, this is a bit of a hedge against Bioblight. It means that even if Kian does have it, I don't believe it's in his main deck, but he could possibly have it here.
Then at least a burn spell wins the game.
Exactly.
Now, to be fair, Bioblade, yeah, would do a number on this board. You see Dragon Fodder's post-combat. And even now, what I do like about Cedric's line is it's opened him up to a lot of outs for burn spells being lethal. And in the situation where he doesn't draw the burn spell, he can still outburst next turn, and then on the following turn, almost certainly has a lethal attack.
Yeah.
There is some concern about Kian turning the corner. Not much, but some.
Yeah, I think Cedric's play is slightly more vulnerable to something like another copy of Siege Rhino, potentially.
Exactly, because then he could use the Siege Rhino and then the following turn flip up Den Protector, which can't be blocked, swing it and some Siege Rhinos, and force Cedric into some pretty poor blocks.
Yeah.
Death Dealer, Obzon Charm, Hero's Downfall, those are the cards in Kian's hand. None of them really good against Goblin tokens. He's going to need another blocker on the board. He does have a Den Protector in hand and a Lion in the graveyard, but he can't make that play because he'll have to pay life off Mana Confluence if he does.
And Cedric gets to have a lot of patience here on the back end, too. You know, if Kian says go, let's say with all of his blockers and all of his mana available, there's nothing forcing Cedric to make another Alpha Strike. He can simply cast Rolling Outburst, pass the turn back, and force Kian to have something yet again.
So my question is, can Kian actually survive this turn? If you look at his lands, those 2 on top, the Mana Confluence and Llanowar Wastes, both cost him a life point. So he needs another creature in play to survive. But how does that happen? Can he cast a creature without taking a damage?
Yeah, it basically has to be Siege Rhino. If he's casting the small stuff here, I don't know if there's a way for him to survive.
Yeah, his hand is Death Dealer, Downfall, Obzon Charm. I'm not sure any of these actually make him survive the turn. Yeah, I'm unconvinced that Kian can live through this, just Cedric's turning the board sideways. I think Kian coming to the same conclusion. Yeah, he's going to swing the team. And I like so this seems to be that he wants to induce Cedric into thinking that if he wants to induce Cedric into blocking. So say Kian's last card's a Siege Rhino. Mm-hmm. If Cedric blocks, he's not dead to Siege Rhino. But if he doesn't block, he is. The swing is for 9. So maybe Cedric will have to chump away a token.
But then the question is on the other side, is Cedric even able to beat Siege Rhino? I think the answer is probably yes, because Kian would only have 1 blocker back, and worst case scenario, Cedric's drawing very live. I think just chumping the Fleecemane Lion is probably what I would do from Cedric's spot.
It certainly is the safe play.
You still have a chance of being Siege Rhino if that's Kian's follow-up. And if Kian's got just a removal spell or something, you're going to win the game on the crackback.
The issue here is that if Cedric says no blocks, Kian's dead. And if Cedric blocks, Kian's still dead.
Yeah, I think that Kian needs to hope for Cedric to chump block multiple creatures. Yeah, I like this block from Cedric. I think this protects him from the worst case scenario and still gives him out. You know, it's still lethal on the way back, and if Kian has Siege Rhino, he's still drawing very live.
Yeah, so he'll chump block the non-trampling threat. He'll block the Fleecemane Lion, so now 6 damage coming across, looks to put Cedric at 6. That's what will happen. Goblin token dies. And he'll pass. It's going to make Cedric turn it all sideways, which I imagine Cedric will do. And those pain lands, he talked about how he needed early threats and needed his mana to not hurt him too much. If you look at the end there, the line of flipping up Den Protector, playing Fleecemane Lion would have stabilized Kian were it not for the fact that his lands dealt him so much damage.
Yeah, and that's you know, the issue with Obzon aggro in this matchup is you're taking little points of damage from your lands along the way. Sometimes you're not casting spells on time. Kian had both of those things that Llanowar Waste dealt him at a couple points. He took an entire turn off having to cast Thoughtseize because one of his lands came into play tapped, and that was the difference. Cedric barely got across the finish line that game. Kian made some powerful plays, but his lands kind of undid him.
All right, well, Cedric up 1-0 here in what figured to be a really close game 1. And we'll get back to the sideboarding in a second here. One thing that we are starting on SCG Live, this is the next level library. You've been seeing the things released by Patrick Chapin over the years here, now compiled in the entire library. This is for all skill levels. It is Next Level Magic, the book, along with Next Level Deck Building. So this is your new one-stop shop for all the publications. Both of them available both as PDF ebook or in paperback. Paperback's now available in full softcover printings. You can get them now at starcitygames.com/nextlevel.
And Next Level Magic, focus on gameplay. Next Level Deck Building, a focus on deck building by Magic's preeminent theorist, Pro Tour Hall of Famer, two-time World's runner-up, Pro Tour champion Patrick Chapin. Available both on paperback and ebook. Very excited to finally have these books available on both platforms. StarCityGames.com/nextlevel to order your copies today.
All right, so let's go to some sideboards. Atarka Red, a deck that struggles some after sideboard, or usually its matchups get worse. It's got a great game one. That one's pretty close already. So Cedric's sideboard, what are we looking for?
4 copies of Eidolon of the Great Rebel, 4 copies of Roast, 2 copies of Hall of Triumph, 2 copies of Goblin Rabblemaster, a Destructive Revelry, a Scour of Sands, and a Goblin Heel Cutter. Really like Cedric's sideboard here. On the draw, I'm not sure if he wants Eidolon because Kian's deck is definitely capable of threatening damage, but definitely on the play, Eidolon's going to be great. 4 copies of Roast is a huge upgrade for Cedric, allows him to kill Siege Rhino and some of the other problematic ground pounders. I think the 1 copy of Goblin Heel Cutter can come in here as well. Kian, definitely the defensive deck, trying to block in a lot of spots, and Heel Cutter is a nice way to top off the curve.
Yeah. Over on Kian Dai's sideboard, he has 3 copies of Drown in Sorrow, and that's a big one in this matchup. He did play a lot of that copy of that. That should definitely help him. Outside of that, he has Duress. That's decent here. Certainly an improvement on Thoughtseize. Duress is pretty good in the matchup, but a lot of his things are higher up on the curve. Nissa, Whisperwood Elemental, Self-Inflicted Wound. I imagine he may go to a couple copies of Ultimate Price as well, simply because it's a cheaper kill spell.
I wouldn't mess around with cards like Duress because Cedric very quickly gets to a spot where he's playing off the top, and as you saw in there that game, because of the awkwardness of his lands and the mana distribution, sometimes those discard spells represent a full turn. I definitely like Drown in Sorrow a ton. I think the 2 copies of Ultimate Price are excellent in this matchup, and I think the copy of Tassiger can also come in. Post-board, Cedric's going to be able to kill more stuff. Cards are going to get into his graveyard, and a 1-mana 4/5 can do a lot of work on defense.
Yeah, it's not so much for the ability, but more just because it's, in a way, it's a cheap creature.
Exactly. He needs to get to a spot where he can cast 2 spells in 1 turn. That's the way for him to recoup the early tempo losses he's going to have by Cedric's deck being faster and more streamlined. Drown in Sorrow is the other path that Kian has to get to that spot of just wiping Cedric's board, but failing that, Tassiger can get into a spot where around turn 4, turn 5, maybe he's casting multiple spells in the same turn, and he needs those kind of sequences to stabilize the game.
Kian will get to be on the play for this game, which will be helpful. So wants a combination of early pressure and lands that don't repeatedly hurt him. That he did take just a little too much damage off his lands that game. He took 1 for Fleecemane Lion, another 1 for a Thoughtseize, took another 1 for the Siege Rhino, and then at the end couldn't afford to take a 4th point, and that's what cost it for him.
And his lands were fairly cooperative on the balance. He was able to cast things more or less on time, but even still, it was too much. A lot of War Waste, Mana Confluence, a land that came into play tapped at an inopportune time, and Kian lost a very close game. Yeah,
cards like Sandstep Citadel, even though tap lands can be a liability against a red deck, oftentimes are worth the tempo loss here.
Definitely at turn 1, Sandstep Citadel is one of the most important plays for Kian in the matchup, because then he can cast most of his spells on time from a color mana perspective and take way less damage over the course of the game.
Remember, this one is a lot of players still alive for top 8 going into this round. This one, though, pretty simple. If you want to get in top 8, you're going to have to win this. Cedric capping off what could be an 8-round rally to get into the top 8 here. He is 1 game away.
From all the way down, was on the ropes, potentially at risk of being left on the leaderboard at 4-4 drop throughout the duration of the event. And here he is on the verge of top 8ing. Cedric Phillips, I do not believe, has an Open Series top 8 to his name.
He had one Star City Games Seattle Open a couple years ago with red-green, just red-green it was, I don't think it was Monsters at the time, and maybe it wasn't called Monsters yet. He has one.
Okay. He's mentioned to me before that he had 0, so I didn't know if that was actually the case or not.
Well, he doesn't get a chance to play very many of them.
It's true. This is no indictment. Cedric has not played in many of these events.
Going to be a 6-on-6 at the very least for game 2. Both players on the mulligan, you see here. So check, this is his third top 8. He does have one with Jund aggro in Seattle a couple years ago. And actually, this one's a good one. If you go all the way back to 2009, he's got a legacy top 8 with Goblin Charbelcher.
Yeah, a different time for the Open Series. I played in one of the old legacy events in Los Angeles way back in the day, I think 2010, 2009, and it was definitely a different event. The Open Series has grown quite a bit in a number of respects over the last couple of years.
Every once in a while, you get a Charbelcher deck into a top 8.
I'm sorry for denigrating his accomplishments. I remember a conversation recently where he told me that he did not have any, but it turns out that he's potentially playing for his third Open Series top 8. One sort of recently and one in prehistoric times relative to the Open Series.
I realized he played. I knew he played one kind of goblins in Legacy. I didn't really see he went with that kind of goblins in Legacy.
There was a time where Cedric was just trying to feel something, more or less, and was really on a Charbelcher kick.
All right, well, the turn 1 Sand Step that was so important is going to be the play from Kian. Has a turn 2 Fleece Main line on the play, just like game 1. This time it cost him no life points as it stares across at Cedric's Foundry Street Denizen.
Pain-free and on time.
Remember, both players on 6. Cedric's turn 2 is a Lightning Berserker. No second land passes the turn. This is the kind of game that Kian wanted to be playing.
It's also the kind of game where Cedric may not be able to be Drown in Sorrow if it shows up.
Kian's play on turn 3 is another Fleece Main line, an Urborg, and a pass. Does Cedric get a second land? He does. He gets to keep playing. Second Mountain. Fleece Main's really important to Knobs on aggro. Probably it and Siege Rhino are some of the most important cards in the matchup. Post-board Drown in Sorrow joins them.
The good blockers.
How does Cedric get through these? They are quite large. Berserker can trade with one, but it costs him his whole turn.
But with both players mulliganing and being light on resources, not necessarily the end of the world.
He's going to swing both of them, and he's going to Convoke Stoke the Flames at one of them.
I was going to say, that's a very aggressive attack.
I was very surprised, like, what does he have? No, Stoke the Flames. And it's going to be a morph from Kian as he passes back. You see Kian being so conservative here, not swinging any of his creatures, even though he had a lot more power on the board than Cedric.
He's got a huge advantage in the long term. So even if these Fleece Main lines just get killed and he doesn't get an opportunity to attack or block, just slow the game down as much as possible.
Well, I really do like it, especially when he has a hand that's heavy on Den Protectors, just slowing up, trading, getting 2-for-1s, seems exactly where he wants to be.
Defense. Just block and let his card quality eventually overtake the game.
Now, he is somewhat hamstrung on his mana if he wants to go ahead and flip Den Protector and get back Fleece Main lands. He only has one source of green. Cedric's turn play, though, is the same as the last one. It's another Stoke the Flames, this time taking down Den Protector.
And he is risking Fleece Main Lion possibly going monstrous this turn, but simply can't allow Den Protector to flip face up and get back a Fleece Main Lion. And
Kian, 2 spells. It's another Den Protector and a Warden of the First Tree, but still no attacks on Kian's side. Defense, as you mentioned, all the way. And Warden, a decent threat here, can get lifelink. Something Cedric doesn't want to have happen. Now he will get to go develop his board. It's Hordling Outburst, pumping Foundry Street Denizen into a 4-1, and in it will swing. Could trade with any of Kian's creatures if Kian wants it.
Kian can just offer up the Warden here if he wants to. Oh, yeah. Looks like he's got big plans.
He's going to offer up Fleece Main line. I was a little surprised. I was expecting to see the Warden take that one. But without the 5th land, Fleece Main is something. I mean, he can get it back later on with Den Protector. Warden's going to become a 3-3. And he's giving Cedric a lot of time just hoping to control and overpower.
Yep. I mean, he's got 2 blockers in play, Warden and this Den Protector, that are capable of containing the tokens.
Very interested to see just how slow he wants to go, if he feels he has to get back Fleece Main line, or if he's going to go the route of Den Protector, getting back Den Protector.
I think that he's got a good sync with his mana here in Warden, that I would just go for some immediate payoff here with the Fleece Main Lion. It is really slow getting back Den Protector.
Yeah, I mean, he has played the game as defensively as possible. That is if he really wants to go for the late game, it's an option.
But he doesn't need to a million for one Cedric to generate enough card advantage to win the game. He can, a couple 2-for-1s here are going to be enough.
All right, well, let's see where Cedric's at. And what I do like Cedric this entire time, not playing around any copies of Drown in Sorrow. He'll make a Goblin Rabble Master. post-combat Rabble Master, and say go. Did not want his Hordling Upper tokens to sort of decide themselves just yet. On Kian's turn, on end step, Fleet Death Protector flips over, gets back the Fleece main line. Now he'll take his turn, and it's going to be a copy of Duress for Cedric. And it takes the Atarka's command out of his hand. And that's a pretty huge one for him.
Cedric was setting up not necessarily a lethal turn, one where you could have attacked for a bunch and made some huge inroads with that Atarka's command. Now, way harder to do, especially because all of his Goblin tokens are going to be compelled to attack into this board.
Yeah, last turn he was fine with them attacking. He's probably less fine with it now.
Yeah.
We're in the first tree, a 3/3. Has not had a chance to use its second ability, so it does not have lifelink just yet. But on Cedric's side, his Goblins are all about to make a really ill-advised attack.
Very timely duress there from Kian.
And what I do like about that play is he played it just at the time when Atarka's command would really get him.
I think the duress may have been off the top, but the timing could not have been better.
Well, Cedric's damage is a different one. Here's Goblin Heel Cutter. It's going to have to attack because of Rabble Master.
Well, that's what it's there to do.
And here's the command. Rabble Master's joining in too. So no blocks on, looks like on Warden of the first tree.
I think that Cedric says that Den Protector can't block because he wants Kian to have to make the decision of block with a quality creature to trade with Heel Cutter or Rabble Master, or allow you to block the tokens. But Den Protector getting to trade with one of the quality threats is not very good for Cedric. So he says your crappy creature can't block. Now decide what you want to do. Do you want to contain one of my good threats or one of my bad threats?
And it looks like Kian's going to trade the board away for the Rabble Master and the Heel Cutter. Takes 5, goes to 15. He's still left with Den Protector. But the board looking reasonable for Cedric after that turn.
This is good stuff for Cedric for sure.
Here's Rakshasa Death Dealer with 2 planes on Rakshasa Death Dealer.
That's how you build a mana base right there. That's how you do it.
Fortunately, one of them can tap for black, thanks to Urborg. Still trying to play defense. You do see in his hand, I believe Kian had with a copy of Whisperwood Elemental. That's something he could certainly stabilize the board with.
Gonna be tough to cast though. I mean, he's on only 1 green source of mana and 4 lands, and there's not a lot in his deck that produces green mana the turn it comes into play. A lot of his lands come to play tap. So Kian has gone on to some more of his expensive cards here. He's trying to establish a Den Protector loop, but all these slow cards, though powerful, are giving Cedric an opportunity to still get in a couple points of damage here, a couple points of damage there. Cedric's still pretty far away from being able to kill Kian, but given how poorly the first couple turns of this game have gone, Cedric's still playing. It feels like he's still going to be in position to at least top deck Atarka's command and potentially get a kill that way.
Cedric does have a decent board here. Kian is still at a healthy 15, so it'll be interesting to see how he goes for the line. He has 2 mountains, Mana Confluence, and right now 5 creatures in play. They're all 1/1s. Berserker can pump. Kian doesn't have that stabilizing card yet. However, Cedric has to assume that one's waiting in the wings. So he's going to swing Lightning Berserker, offer it as a trade for whichever creature Kian chooses. Kian accepts, he'll trade it for Den Protector. Now post-combat, Cedric looks like he's going to play another Lightning Berserker and a Monastery Swift Spear and pass back.
Still just trying to go wide against Kian's blockers.
Sounds great. Still not playing around Drown in Sorrow. And for Kian, finally does it land 5, and it's green. It's going to be a Windswept Heath, puts him down to 14, but this looks like it'll be a Whisperwood Elemental.
Yeah, that is perfect for Kian, and now it's going to get harder and harder for Cedric to win the game by going wide, because Kian's going to be able to keep up with that with Whisperwood Elemental.
Five, that will be the 4/4. He'll manifest and pass the turn. Because of how defensively he played this game, now that he's finally gotten up to 5 mana, Kian had a very healthy 14 life. A timely duress stopped him Cedric from ever getting that big turn. Can Cedric find a way to push damage through?
Feels like he's got about a 1-turn window here to find Roast, and then maybe still be able to play on, maybe Stoke the Flames. He's used a lot of those, but
he's got to just kill the Whisperwood.
He won't be able to win in the long term against this card, even with the Atarka's command. It's going to be very hard to do so.
1 spot left in the very last event of the day, a Commander Pod.
And
1 spot left in the last Commander Pod.
Yeah, surveying options here. Remember, Cedric up a game. This is a match for what we assume is top 8.
Definitely for Cedric, possibly for Kian. and Cedric just trying to figure out if there's some way that he can still keep attacking here. I suppose Hall of Triumph, if Cedric's sideboarded that in, would be a pretty big play here.
Absolutely. Not a matchup where I would automatically assume he has. You talked about that one before.
I agree. I think it's not likely that it's brought in, but this would be a very good spot for it.
Lightning Berserker is going to attack. That's offering a trade of Berserker for the Manifest token. Kian will accept. No pump. It was a Sorin. And Cedric, Foundry Street Den is in the post-combat play. Going to have to trade off resources to buy himself an extra shot at finding something like Roast.
Yeah. Not where Cedric wants to be. The window to draw this and have it still be relevant, very, very tiny. And now a second Whisperwood is going to be even harder.
And he's second Whisperwood from Kian, so now I pass in a double Manifest. And I don't know if Cedric has a way to even sculpt a hand that gets past this anymore.
Yeah, he's pretty close to locked out. I think Cedric's asking for time, knowing that he's south of 1% to win this game, and does he need to preserve the clock here and just go to game 3 or keep trying to battle this game out?
He'll play fetch land, tap it off Kian Zerborg, play Goblin Rabblemaster, pass the turn for Kian. Here's a Siege Rhino. That'll gain 3. He goes up to 17.
I think Cedric was getting prepared to concede to Sorin there, but Siege Rhino, again, I guess he'll play on for a little bit longer.
And Kian, And one thing that I like, Kian has played all his creatures as though they had Defender, not wanting to attack until he's just an overwhelming favorite.
Yeah. He may muster an attack next turn with the Siege Rhino. Maybe the Death Dealer because he now has double green and double black, but he's in no rush.
The way to Cedric's outs are cards like Atarka's Command. If he has as many creatures as Cedric, that's just not going to beat him.
Yep.
Go over to Cedric's turn. He set up for this. His creatures are going to all have to attack because of Rabblemaster, so he's going to need a great draw. And here's the Goblin off Rabblemaster. Everybody swings in. Well, the Goblins have to. And Kian's going to block everything.
Yeah, this is going to be all Cedric creatures getting blocked, and saying to Cedric, do you have anything? And if he does have something, I don't think it's likely to be worth very much.
Trade with one of the Manifests. All the Goblins off the table. Cedric will pass. Looks like he has enough time that he wants to make Kian play it out. Siege Rhino will swing in along with some pair of the 2/2s. That'll be 8.
Cedric just wants to see how Kian wants to make this attack. Remember last game, Kian made a pretty weird attack there in the last turn. There's some information to be gleaned in these sort of spots to see how aggressive or defensive you anticipate your opponent play in the game in general. So Cedric at least wants to see what the attack looks like.
And Tassiger from Kian. Cedric down to 6. The next turn should be lethal as Kian manifests 2 more cards. Cedric counting, making sure. Yep.
Okay.
Gets to see all these face-down cards. So some land, a Drown in Sorrow, and a land. Well, he gets to know that Kian plays Drown in Sorrows.
Yep.
He assumed he would, but now knows. Taking all the information he can get as the players will get ready for Game 3.
No big surprises there. Most of these Obzon aggro decks do have Drown Star on the sideboard, but always good double check. Worth noting that Kian left in copies of Dromoka's Command. Sometimes a card people are a little skeptical about against a deck like Atarka Red because when you're behind, it's really bad. But enough utility there, and generally cheap enough, you would want to leave it in.
And the players will move over toward Game 3. Remember, that one a 6-on-6, both players playing off some mulligans. Kian, I think having really close to what he needs in the matchup. The fact that a turn 2, turn 3 Lion on the play and took no damage from his lands to do it turned out to be really strong in the matchup.
He was able to block the whole way through, and that's really what his game plan is here. When Cedric can't attack for very much damage, it's only a matter of time before Kian overwhelms him with Siege Rhinos and Whisperwood Elementals. And Kian on the play there, mana base is clean, casting stuff on time. Cedric never really got any sort of foothold in the game.
Yeah, Atarka Red, just a deck that came onto the scene really during the Pro Tour. Martin Dang, the Pro Tour winner, was playing it. Now, as you know, during each Pro Tour, Star City Games holds states and regional championships. So if you look forward to the next Pro Tour, this is Magic Origins taking place on August 1st. We'll be holding one of our tournaments. This is the Star City Games Regional Championships, so it's the Summer Regionals. And for the unique selfie playmat you see here, this is parroting the Oscars shot from Ellen DeGeneres. This is going to be given away to the first 200 pre-registered players. So you're going to be wanting to clear out your calendars for that weekend and playing it. When we will tell, this is going to be the reward, and we will be unveiling registration and more later coming on at starcitygames.com/regionals.
We have 2 regional championships a year. One is in the winter, one is in the summer. August 1st, we'll have our regional championships all around the United States. As we get closer to the event, you can head over to starcitygames.com/regionals, find the regional championship closest to you, and more information about the event.
Right, going back to game 3 now, especially against a deck like Atarka Red, you can see players sometimes switch sideboard plans between the play and draw, especially when you're playing against this sort of deck. Looking at Kian's deck, as he moves to the draw here, does he need to lower his curve even farther?
I become much more skeptical about cards like Whisperwood Elemental, for example. Just 5-mana plays in general. They're a little bit harder to rationalize. I think that his expensive cards that are powerful are so good that they're worth leaving in pretty much no matter what. Whisperwood is the one that I would be on the fence about.
Yeah, his other ones, Sorin and Siege Rhino, are pretty great at turning the corner. When he plays all his creatures with Defender, Sorin gives him the ability to suddenly play Sorin, plus it, and swing everything.
I'm also happy with Wingmate Rock, too. It's expensive, but when it comes down and attacks once, it's an enormous swing. And if Cedric is mucking up the board with a bunch of tokens, Wingmate Rock is still powerful, whereas sometimes Whisperwood, it gets jammed up a little bit, and if Cedric has a sea of attackers, he can still attack, and it's harder for Kian to attack on the way back with his Whisperwood and Manifest tokens.
Well, so I'm actually surprised about that. So Wingmate Rock, so the idea is you get 2 creatures, but it does force you into attacking for a turn. If he's just going to play everything to sit back and block, Whisperwood can make we saw there he eventually kept pace with Cedric's tokens.
You get a blocker on the way back because you get the rated token. And
Sure.
then you start gaining life and attacking in the air, which is a lot more powerful than not gaining life and continue to clog up the ground.
Yeah, the life gain, I suppose, is pretty good off Wingmate Rock in the matchup.
On Cedric's side, I think the swing card becomes Eidolon of the Great Rebel. On the draw, I think it's a little dodgy, especially because Kian has Dromoka's command. Kian's also capable of damage racing in certain games, but on the play, most likely scenario is Kian's playing nothing on turn 1. So a draw from Cedric of something like Eidolon of the Great Rebel, and an answer for Kian's first play, something like Lightning Strike on your Death Dealer or your Policeman Lion, that's a very potent opening. It's a lot harder for Cedric to execute that on the draw. So that, to me, is the one swing card in the matchup.
Well, going to game 3, this is going to be the hard one for Kian Dai. He is on the draw and on the mulligan against Cedric Phillips. Atarka Red has kept a 7-card hand on the play. We saw this game 1 where Cedric really just ran his opponent, ran him out of the game.
Well, now he's got to play against 3 copies of Drown in Sorrow. So it's a little bit harder for him to do that, or at least it comes with much greater risk than it does in game 1.
Actually, no. Game 1, he was able to do that last round. Game 1 here actually was very close. Kian's mana ended up catching up to him. For Cedric, though, it could be one of those great draws. Turn 1 will be a Monastery Swift Spear. Kian down to 19.
And Drown in Sorrow, the first draw set there for Kian. Big deal.
Plays a Temple, scries to the bottom, and passes. Just how good is Cedric's hand, and how much respect does he want to give to a card like Drown in Sorrow? See here, it's going to be another Monastery Swift Spear. A swing for 2 puts Kian down to 17. And one of the things I like about Swift Spears is if Cedric's has an instant and is willing to leave up mana, he can play around Drown in Sorrow while continuing to attack.
Yeah, Wild Slash is great for Cedric in this spot.
Yeah. For Kian, on the draw, it's a pair of tap lands. Quite the liability. Now, as we said, he does have that big payoff. And that tension is going to be what this game's about.
Yeah.
He's going to dash Goblin Heel Cutter, attack for 5. That puts Kian down to 12.
This is also sort of a way to play around Drown in Sorrow, is to get in some damage this turn, but not completely empty out your hand.
For Kian, here's land number 3. Here's Drown in Sorrow. Both creatures gone. Kian will scry card to the bottom. Board is clean, but Kian's at 12. Portland Outburst to play from Cedric. It was the draw, a great one. He'll put 3 goblins into play.
And I believe Cedric has a Tarkus command in hand also, so he's getting close to being able to close this game out, although a huge draw here from Kian and Siege Rhino.
It's a huge draw. It does get him 3 life, but one thing is that Kian knows what one of those cards in Cedric's hand is, and it's real good here. It's the copy of Goblin Heel Cutter as Kian goes up to 15. stuck on mana. He just has the 3 lands. Has a lot of powerful spells, but really not the ability to play too many of them at once. Looks like maybe Roast, maybe another Outburst.
I think this is a pretty straightforward play if he's got Roast. I don't think he wants Kian doing something like playing Sorin and plussing. I don't think he wants Kian attacking and casting Wingmate Rock. If you can kill the Siege Rhino here, I think you got to take it.
A lot of weapons, though. He does have another Outburst and an Atarka's Command.
Cedric would need an awfully specific hand here to be able to want to play through the Siege Rhino, because there's so many risky follow-ups that Kian has on his side.
Yeah. We'll see what he goes for. I mean, just resetting the board and dealing 3, then we get to repeat the same decision next turn.
Right.
And comes the conclusion. Rhino is roasted. Goblins will swing in. Kian is down to 12.
Yeah, Cedric, there's too many risky follow-ups here that Kian has.
Kian's going, though.
He's just got to kill it.
See, Kian getting what he needs. It's another Siege Rhino in his hand. And that's going to be the play. Kian back up to 15, undoes the damage. Cedric down to 11, and the damage race starting to tip the other way. Siege Rhino real good at doing that.
Yeah, those back-to-back Siege Rhinos, they're just a huge deal for Kian. Now remember, Cedric can still crack back with the heel cutter, but now
he's losing the race almost.
Losing the race, and Kian starting to get to some very dangerous draws for Cedric. Sorin gaining a bunch of life, and Wingmate Rock potentially getting raided.
Yeah, if he heel cuts in, Cedric would go to 10, Kian would go to 9, and then it would be Kian's turn. Cedric wouldn't develop his board. That is a risky spot to be.
Now Cedric still has Atarka's Command, which can help against some of the stuff, and makes the race still solidly in his favor, or at least up in the air, if he's able to continue to attack with heel cutter and his tokens. But these back-to-back Siege Rhinos here, obviously about the worst case scenario for Cedric.
Now, at what point, if you're Cedric, do you just want to outburst a second time and then Atarka's Command and say, show me the Drown in Sorrow?
I want to do that quite a bit.
See, he drew a land for the turn, land 4. He has that play available to him. To a Bioblade or Drown Sorrow, it would lose.
Yes. I think Cedric's going to be hard-pressed to beat Drown Sorrow this game regardless.
Might as well go for the biggest payoff then. We'll see if he wants to do it. If he drew a 5th land next turn, he could make that play with heel cutter. It'd be a ton of damage. Probably a lethal amount. Even through something like a Sorin, it might be able to just 20 him. It's a lot.
It is a ton.
It looks like Cedric going to swing the 3 Goblin tokens, willing to give away one of them just for 2 points.
Well, if he has something like Atarka's Command and Lightning Strike, this could be an effort to get the Siege Rhino off the table.
A block, and that's what he's going to do. He's going to Atarka's Command to pump his team and 3 Kian. So Kian goes down to 12. And now we'll go down to 8 off the damage, and Lightning Strike will finish off Siege Rhino.
I love this play from Cedric. Again, the big problems right now are Wingmate Rock and Sorin. He cannot allow Kian to untap and attack with something if he can avoid it. This play is also very effective against a follow-up block on the next turn because Cedric still has the heel cutter left over.
Yep, remaining cards are Heel Cutter and Hordling Outburst for Cedric. He has Kian down to 8. The question is, what is the threat? He's got to hope for the Rhino Parade to stop.
Yeah, I think Kian failed to draw 1 this turn.
Fetches and goes for Whisperwood Elemental. That's a great one against a card like Goblin Heel Cutter.
Yeah, Kian in the market, big time for 2 creatures.
2 creatures now on par with Cedric's 2 creatures. And he's going to keep... This is Whisperwood and may be able to get him through the game again. It's going to keep making more blockers, stopping Cedric's tokens plan. You see he has Hordling Outburst to go wide, but Kian's going to get cards of his own.
I think there may be a question now of a missed trigger.
Yeah, okay. Does manifest it. Cedric, there's the draw of a 5th land. That one, because he used the Atarka's Command last turn, that one's not going to help him too much. Last turn there was a line, he could have played into a double spell turn here. But now it's either Heel Cutter or Hordling Outburst. Heel Cutter doesn't do much, so it's got to be Outburst.
I feel the same way. he can't Hail Cutter and effectively attack. If he hits the Whisper Elemental, the Manifest token trades, and that's a disaster. And if he does it to the Manifest token, then Whisper will just get to eat the Heal Cutter. So nothing to be done with the Heal Cutter. It's got to be Holding Outburst. I think Cedric's on a plan here of hoping to draw Tarka's Command and hoping that it's good next turn.
Now he's holding on to the land here when he has a Heal Cutter in hand, which I was a little... I guess that doesn't matter. If he draws a spell, yeah, he can play the land next turn.
He's got to put the threat of the last card in his hand being action into Kian's head.
Yeah, you're right.
There's not a lot to be gained by playing the land, and he needs to get Kian at least thinking that it could be something else.
And for Kian, we're back onto his turn. Just going to go back to the all-defense plan. Here's a Morph. We know it's Den Protector. That's the one he plays. Here's a Manifest. 4 creatures into play, and it looks like he has staved off the attack from Atarka Red.
As Cedric rips Atarka's Command, I think he's still good.
And he does. It's Atarka's Command. The card he needed. Is it enough? He can dash Heal Cutter and Atarka's Command. That was a huge draw.
Come on, Seti.
Here's the dash. Heal Cutter with 5 goblins. That's going to swing through. Only 3 creatures will be able to block. That means 3 get through, plus the 3 damage upstairs should be enough. He'll put the damage will put Cedric down to 4, or Kian down to 4, and at least 2 creatures are going to get through. That's the remaining 4 damage. This should be lethal. A huge top deck for Cedric. May just put him into the top 8.
Yeah, Kian last turn had the opportunity. I think he may have had... oh, he has Dromoka's Command in hand, so he's still playing.
So the question actually is, does he Dromoka's Command before blocks to kill off Heal Cutter? He needs to stop that from happening.
I don't know. I think that he may want to use that card
so yeah,
to prevent the damage.
Looks like before attacks, he's going to have Whisperwood Elemental, fight Heal Cutter, and he's attempting to put a counter on one of the Manifests. So Atarka's Command will do 3 upstairs and pump the team.
Yeah, I think Kian may need to save that Dromoka's Command to prevent the damage from the Atarka's Command.
And if, this is a huge, so if Kian had used the Dromoka's Command to put a counter on Whisperwood, instead of putting it on the Manifest, the Whisperwood would still be alive and Kian would survive this.
I think this is exactly 7 coming across. I think there's 2 unblocked 2/2s and plus 3 damage.
Yeah, no, this is going to be exactly 7. Yeah, the counter, because... the counter goes there,
yes,
and because the Heal Cutter is a 4/3, it fights and kills Whisperwood, and Cedric's going to win it. Ooh. If the counter goes on Whisperwood, Kian's alive at 2 there, and Cedric's out of cards.
I think there's a couple different ways there. I think that he can also, if the only out there is Dromoka's Command, I think he can, Atarka's Command rather, he can also use Atarka's Command.
Prevent damage.
Just prevent damage. He could have just allowed that attack to come in and waited. And Cedric there squeezing out exactly lethal game 3 to complete the full rally.
And making it a top 8. Congratulations to Cedric Phillips, and a close call for Kian Dai as well.
Yeah, I mean, that was a very complicated game. He also had the ability that last turn, instead of playing Den Protector with Dromoka's Command up, he could have played Sorin, attacked and gained some life, +1 to make combat on the way back. There's a couple different paths there. I think what he wanted to do was have the ability to cast Dromoka's Command, and if nothing happened,
not cast it.
Then he could have Den Protector back to Drown in Sorrow and wiped out everything. I think that was the line that Kian took, but given the specifics of the situation, really
it's a tough line. Yeah.
Atarka's Command is really the only card he has to worry about. He knows about the Heal Cutter from previous dashes, and Cedric there barely squeaking that out.
I think because if the board's not going to kill you, there's no reason to play it.